I've chosen the rolling English road by Chesterton. And every time I read this poem, I keep, whether it's libelous to say so, I kept thinking of Doc Griffiths.
Yes. Does anybody know him?
Doc Griffiths? No. Well,
no.
He was a dear friend of ours,
Two.
And his children are still my friends. But he was a dentist come doctor, and his wife, Dr. Grace, was the first person I said when I was about 12 that I intended to be a writer. It was at the flower show in the Drill Hall. I remember it very distinctly. And Doc Griffiths was Chestertonian, looked Chestertonian, spent most of his life in pubs, was a most charming Welshman, another Welshman, and we all loved him, really. I rather still miss him in some ways. But whenever I hear this poem, which we're going to listen to in a minute, called The Rolling English Road. Not that he walked very far, I must say. He usually had rather broken down cars. But this is this kind of beer drinking period between Belloc and Chesterton, where they went from pub to pub. It's a wonderful, ambling, distorted way. It's the way you do feel when you're rather tight, when you're not quite certain which way you're going. That's a bit...
Mind you, if you had been a driver, you would have known his car.
Yeah.
I tell you.
You used to give me lifts in it. I was
you were a very bold man. The index number of his car was NEV8, N-E-V-8. And if you say to me tonight, what is the index number of my car, I can't tell you. But Dr. Griffiths' index number, you knew, because if you saw NEV8, you pulled in. I'm not kidding. I mean, he was fantastic. He used to live in Assington.
Yes.
And that road, jeepers. And his wife, as you say, wonderful Dr. Grace Griffiths, a Quaker missionary doctor to where is it? China, wasn't it?
They had 6 children.
That's right.
All of them dear ones and friends of ours.
Absolutely.
That's right, yes. I said, still some alive, I'm glad to say.
And he used to be in Bournemgate precinct, and he used to say to patients, the days before much painkillers, he'd say, nip over to the bear and have a couple of stiff ones, and I'll drill you when you get back.
But he was a glorious man, really. I remember him sort of taking us to places occasionally, and I remember his wife, especially. My mother saw her as a kind of saint.
Yes, she
was.
She was.
If this is in the 30s, a poor woman had a baby, and there were 3 or 4 other children. Dr. Grace put them all in her car and took them back for a few days to give mother. She never used the parents' names. Mother was mother and father was father. And people had no money at all, and very, very poor indeed, often farm workers. And when a baby came, Dr. Grace put the other children in the car and took them back to her rather big house and looked after them for a few days to give mother a rest. She sometimes stood up for people in the courts who had up for this, that, or the other, saying how wonderful they were. She had no judgment of anyone, really. She's a splendid woman. And eventually she bought, which part of the world you love very much, a place at Argafen. First of all, she had a caravan for bird watching, and then later on she had a little brickmaker's cottage there, and where she would flee from the world, in a sense, with another woman, Dr. Jolly, whose funeral I took, as a matter of fact, a long time. And I thought these 2 ladies, these 2 Edwardian ladies, were a great lesson to everybody. They were lacking in vanity, had no interest in money whatsoever, didn't bother to collect it, did anything for anybody all the time, adored children, and were both stern and easy. It's extraordinary. But whenever I think of the old Rolling English Road, I think of her husband, which she never condemned remotely, but there he was on the Rolling English Road.
There you are.
That's right.